Hot stuff coming through. Woo! Dough slinger. Hey bakers, it's Martin. We're in the studio today making grandma pizza. This is a thin crust pizza made from a long fermented dough. After rising, we top it with a little cheese and then dollop sauce on top. We're really leaning into crispy crust, melted dark cheese, and a spicy sauce. Come along, let's make some pizza. My favorite thing about this recipe, beyond eating a deliciously crisp and crusty pie, is the fact that you mix the dough in what, 5 minutes or less? It's a few ingredients, they come together very quickly, a little bit of kneading or working it in the bowl, and then it goes into the fridge and you basically forget about it. So in that sense, it's like that dough is waiting for me 4 to 24 hours. I could come back later tonight if I mixed around breakfast time, or I could even, leave it in the fridge for 24 and you could stretch it out to even say 36 or so and have it for dinner tomorrow night. The flexibility is really nice, but more than that, during that time in the fridge, we get great flavor development and we also get a lot of strength. You'll see how this dough rises beautifully when we let it sit on day 2. It's a really nice dough, so that's sort of one of my favorite things about it is the flexibility, that sort of like set it and forget it aspects. Okay. Let's do this mix. So we're gonna mix the grandma pizza, and today I have 2 flours in the bowl. One is some of this Italian-style flour, which is a soft wheat flour, and then I'm also using some all-purpose. If you don't have the Italian style, that's okay. Just check out the recipe. It's down there in the link below, and you can substitute some all-purpose for that, okay? So I'll get some Italian style into the bowl. The softer wheat is going to give us a little bit better extensibility, right? That's the ability of dough to stretch without tearing, right? Whereas harder wheat gives more elasticity. That's the snappy quality that helps support sort of like the tug when we bite the crust, okay? So we have a little bit of both. We've sort of got strength and we also have a little bit of tenderness. The beauty of using the scale is that I don't have to get out my measuring cups. I just scale directly into the bowl. Scales don't make things harder, they make things easier, and they speed up cleanup. You just go directly into the bowl. Okay, so our 2 flours in the bowl, and then I'll get my salt in. Nothing fancy there. Some instant yeast. My preference is instant. You could also use active dry, but I like instant. It has a very fine granulation, which means that it goes into the dough really quickly and really easily, and it starts a little bit more quickly than active dry. So instant is always my preference, but use what you have. Also in this recipe is a little bit of a pizza dough flavor, and what that is mostly cheese powder with a little bit of onion and garlic. It just adds a little bit of that like pizzeria hit to my lens. Like when I smell the dough, I'm like, oh, I'm sitting in the pizzeria of my childhood memory, you know what I mean? Stir to combine, just to make sure that before I add my liquids, things are sort of homogeneous. And then I've got my water. Water is lukewarm. We've got a cool room today, so I'm in like the mid to high 90s. And then some olive oil, 2 tablespoons, and just stir to combine. As I'm stirring, the places where I focus on in these early stages of mixing, it's often the sides of the bowl because I want to make sure that I try and sort of keep that clean. I don't like a bowl with a bunch of waste coming up the sides. I like to try and keep it clean, so as I move around in the bowl, I sort of come up and clean it as I go. And once I feel like my spoon or my dough whisk or whatever your tool of choice is sort of done what it can, then I switch. And this is a flexible dough scraper. It's just kind of my right hand. I like to keep my hands clean. It's just, I don't know, it's one of my things. And so I switch to this a lot. The flexibility helps it to conform to the bowl, and I can use it for a lot of different things. I can use it for dividing dough. I can use it, as I am here, to knead the dough. I get under the dough, press and turn, and it keeps my hands clean. So I'm just going to knead it in the bowl for a minute until I feel like it's smooth. You could take this out on the counter and do that. You could put it in your stand mixer, like I said, and just let it spin while you unload the dishwasher or do whatever you need to do. For me, I like working it in the bowl, and this is a dough that is soft enough that I can sort of do this like slap and fold method. But you need the way that you sort of like to, you know? Don't let Martin tell you how to do everything, you know? Keep your intuition. The advantage of sort of kneading in the bowl like this and using this method is that I don't have any extra flour, right? There's no extra flour. So I'm not changing the recipe. When you add flour to knead in a small way, and for some of us to a greater way, depending on how heavy of a sort of bench flour you are, you change the recipe. So leaving it in the bowl and just like working it like this doesn't require any additional bench flour, and it's a very good way to strengthen dough. Bring it out on the counter and just round it up. Then what happens? Well, this is what happens. Absolutely nothing. You just put it into the container, and then it goes into the fridge for 4 to 24 hours. Now, the instructions say put it in a 5-quart bowl. You could do that, but this is my all-time favorite dough container, like my all-time favorite dough container. It's only 2 quarts, but though she is small, she is mighty and can handle all of this dough, which is not that much. It's not so much that I think it necessarily has to be in a 5-quart. In my testing, it's been fine in this little 2-quart. The great thing about the 2-quart is that it's got this snappy little lid. Plop it on top, and then throw it into your fridge for 4 to 24 hours. Done, right? Super easy. We'll come back in a little while. We'll pull out a dough that I mixed previously, and we'll go to shaping. Look at this dough. Happy dough. It's sort of selling itself on the set it and forget it, right? Look at that thing. I mean, what I've noticed with this dough is that you may not necessarily see a doubling, or I haven't seen necessarily a doubling. So if you don't see that, don't stress out, you know, it's okay. It's gonna have some additional time to sort of rise in the pan, it's okay. So before I dump the dough in, it's 2 tablespoons of olive oil directly into the pan. Olive oil is really important. Don't skimp on the olive oil. The oil is going to almost fry. It's going to fry like a little bit. It's going to fry the bottom of the dough, and it's going to brown really nicely. It's going to give us this crispiness. It's also going to infuse that bottom crust with flavor. So don't skimp on that olive oil. Spread that olive oil around. Before I dump the dough in, we should probably talk briefly for 1 second, for one brief moment, about this pan. This is a dark anodized pan. It's very good for pizza, and the reason for that is that it's dark, right? Dark colored pans absorb heat more quickly, and they transfer it better to the dough that's in the pan. So if you're using a light colored like aluminum sheet tray, it actually reflects heat. It doesn't heat quite as well. So these pans will give us a darker bottom crust. I like that. I love the pans made by Lloyd. We also have their Detroit pan. And you know me, I don't use a tool unless I believe in it, and I believe in these pans and their ability to give me the bottom crust that I want. If you don't have that though, like, don't let it stop you from making pizza, okay? Use your regular half sheet tray and it's gonna be okay. But just know that there's a next level out there waiting for you in terms of darkness, crust color, crispness, and all of those things. The dough is nicely risen. It feels soft. I see a little bit of air. If I look on the sides, I can see some bubbling. Beautiful dough. What I'm going to do is try and stretch this all the way into the edges of the pan. My hope is that it will get there on the first pass because it's just less work for me to do. But if it doesn't, it's okay. We'll get it to where we can, and then if we have to step away and, like I said, go unload the dishwasher or maybe, I don't know, run the vacuum cleaner or something like that, those are the things that I think of filling that brief moment of time. Once this is stretched about as far as we can get it, we're going to let it rest for 30 minutes, and then we're going to come back and top it. And when we come back, we'll have another chance to sort of give it just a little bit more of a stretch. Sometimes in addition to pressing, which is going to do almost all of the work, if you need to, you can just grab a corner and maybe just gently give it a little bit of an encouragement to get into that corner. And then I'm feeling with my hands, you know, like, does it feel even to me? Hands are very good at that if you let them do the work, right? Just get out of the way and let them do the work. Is it perfect? Nope, not quite. But I think that's about good enough. Cover it, Come back in about 30 minutes, get your toppings ready, get your oven heated up, and set a watch because it's almost pizza time. We rested this covered 30 minutes. So when I come back to it, I can see that it's retracted slightly. That's okay. Just go in and gently encourage it to fill the pan. If you have to stretch the corners just a little bit, that's fine. Just do so gently, you know. Like some other pan styles, this is cheese first. It's cheese first, so I just go cheese down onto the dough. And it's a generous portion, you know, it's grandma style. Grandma's a generous person. The cheese goes all the way to the edge, and that will give us this frico edge. Frico is that, you know, it's like the crispy part of cheese. It's like the portion of a cheese sandwich that melts onto the pan when you're toasting a grilled cheese. Now, for the sauce, you can sort of dollop it around. You can do lines, whatever you want. It's your choice. I'm just going to do some dollops. What I would say about it, though, is that I like to have pockets where there is no sauce, right? So it's like little sauce islands. And the reasons I like that is that it sort of gives you these really nice saucy bites that are surrounded by cheese, by melted cheese. It's really nice. The eating experience is really good. You can do other toppings too. You could add a drizzle of olive oil to this. You could add some herbs. You could do pepperoni if you wanted. You could do a little bit of like a grated Parmesan. Actually, I have some Parmesan. And you can add a little bit if you want. You can add it post-bake too. I will probably add some post-bake as well because I like Parm a lot. Make it snow. There we go. Nice snowy day in Vermont. And we go straight into the oven, 500 degrees. Get this thing out of my hand, it's hot. So when it comes out, grab a knife and just run it around the edge to make sure that you're not stuck in the pan, right? To get some of that cheese that's right on the edge. You know, sometimes it'll get a little bit crispy. It doesn't taste burnt. It just tastes like the crispy cheese, like I've said before, that runs out of a grilled cheese sandwich. And then get it out of the pan because it's still baking, right? It's still baking, and what I want to make sure of is that it doesn't just sort of sweat out in the pan. I want to maintain all of that crispness. Before I cut it, now you want to let it cool a little bit. If I put it in my mouth right now, it's just going to burn the heck out of my tongue. Don't jump in there and take a bite right away. But do look and see, is this the level of bake that you want? For me, I like it. I've got some browned cheese. I've got good crispness on the bottom. It's nice and thin. I'm going to let it cool for a minute. And then it's time for lunch. Enough waiting. Probably still a little bit on the warm side, but don't care. So after the bake, you can garnish this with whatever you want, or nothing, you know? Perfectly fine like that. I think that a little bit of white cheese on top is actually pretty, so I'm inclined to add a little bit of Parmesan. You can add chili flakes, you can add fresh basil, you could add a spicy mayonnaise and some greens. I mean, this is your pizza party, right? You do what you want. I've got some nice pockets of sauce. I'm using the same sauce today that I used for the asynchronous class, for our on-demand baking class. It's a sauce that's reduced a little bit. It's got a little bit of balsamic vinegar in it. It has some dried spices, really, really nice. And a little bit of chili flake, which is important. Dang. It's really good. It's actually surprisingly good. And I say that without any disrespect to the simple pie, right? There are not a lot of bells and whistles here though, right? It's a dough that's mixed, just mixed to combine, and then it ferments overnight. That's important, right? That gives us that nice strength and also more flavor. But that simplicity is sort of where the beauty is, I think. And it really allows you to focus on just how good the cheese is, just how good the dough is, and then a sauce which is jammy and sort of slightly sweet, but also spicy. Really, really good. Man, Grandma's pizza. Thanks, Grandma. My grandma is like a great baker. Much of who I am as a baker, I owe to my grandma. She's the one who taught me precision. She's the one who taught me that ingredients can be transporting. She's the one who put black walnuts in blonde brownies. I mean, who ever thought of that? It's beautiful, it's delicious. I celebrate her, celebrate all grandmas. Thanks for the pizza, thanks for all the baking, and thanks for the memories too. We appreciate you. Make a grandma pizza, take it over to grandma's house. Cheers, y'all. Happy baking.